You are 22 years old. You're standing in the kitchen of your first apartment. The one with a window that doesn't close all the way, and a refrigerator that hums like it knows something you don't. You just got off the phone with your father. He called to tell you he's proud of you. The degree, it's the job. The direct deposit that hits every other Friday. It's like a small, steady heartbeat. And then, just before he hung up, he said something else. Something he'd been carrying for 41 years. I never invested $1 in my life, he said. I was always waiting for the right time. The right time never came. He set the phone down on the counter. The refrigerator hummed. The window let in a thin sliver of February air. And somewhere in the silence between his words and your next thought, you made a promise. You would be different. You would invest. You would put money into the market. You would not end up standing in a kitchen at 58, holding 41 years of paychecks that arrived and left and arrived and left, with nothing left behind that ever worked while you slept. So you did what most 22-year-olds do when they decide to be different. You opened your phone, you watched a few videos, and at 1 a.m., running on caffeine and conviction, you bought a stock someone on a forum told you was going to moon, you pressed buy, and you had no idea what you had just done. There are two kinds of people who open a brokerage account for the first time. The first kind buys the story. Someone tells them about a stock, a friend, a coworker, a guy on the internet whose thumbnail looks trustworthy. The stock has a narrative. It's disrupting an industry. It's the next big thing. It's what the smart money is buying. The narrative feels good. It feels like being let in on a secret. It feels like being smart. So they buy it. They check the price 12 times that first day. Up $1.40. Down 80 cents. Up to $10. Each flicker feels like evidence. They don't know of what. They just know the number is moving. Moving feels like progress. Progress feels like winning. The second kind does something stranger. Something so boring it barely registers as a decision. They don't buy a story. They buy a number, not the price, the rate, the quiet, invisible, unimpressive percentage that sits underneath everything. Like the hum of the refrigerator. 7%. That's the long-term average return of the entire stock market over the last 100 years. Not every year. Some years up 30, some years down 40. But zoom out far enough, and the number underneath all of it is roughly 7% a year. That's the math your father never learned. That's the number you didn't know existed when you opened your phone at 1 a.m., and that's the number that changes everything. If you understand what it actually does, you find it on a Tuesday, not the math, the form. The email has been sitting in your inbox for 11 days. With a red flag next to it, you've trained yourself to ignore. But tonight, for no reason you can name, you click it. You scroll past the dental plan, past the vision aid-on, past the life insurance you don't need because you're 22 and death still feels like something that happens to other people. You land on a page that says 401k. There's a box, percentage. Right now, it's set to 0. You've been contributing nothing for the 8 months you've worked here. Not because you made a decision, because you never made a decision. 0 was just the default, the path of least resistance, the number that happens when nothing happens. You stare at the box. You think about your father's voice. The right time never came. And then you type the number 6. 6%. Not because you calculated it, because it felt like enough without feeling like too much. You hit submit, you close the laptop, you go to bed, you forget you did it. But the math doesn't forget. 6% of $48,000. $240 a month? About $8 a day? Less than a lunch you won't remember by dinner? Less than a subscription you forgot to cancel? Less than the coffee you buy on the way to work? $8 a day into a fund so boring you can't even remember its name. Left alone. Forgotten about. Doing nothing, or what looks like nothing, for years at a time. Your coworker Marcus started the same week you did. Same salary, same cubicle, same view of the parking garage. Marcus didn't open the benefits email. Marcus had a different plan. Marcus buys the stories. He shows you his phone at lunch. The screen is green. He's up 12% this month. Got into a stock before it pumped, and out of one before it crashed. He tells you these stories with the energy of a man who believes he has cracked the code. You listen. You nod. You don't mention the 6%. You don't mention the boring fund whose name you can't even remember. You don't mention any of it because his numbers are bigger than yours and his wins are louder. His plan looks like genius from the outside, while yours looks like a setting on a form you filled out while half paying attention. But here's the thing about the math. It doesn't care what things look like from the outside. There is a calculation so simple, you can do it on the back of a napkin. And so powerful that if your father had learned it at 22, his entire life would have been different. Take the number 72. Divide it by whatever rate your money is earning. The number you get is how many years it takes your money to double. 72 divided by 7. That's the market average. 10.2 years. That's how long it takes a single dollar to become $2. If you put it in a boring fund and leave it alone, but doubling isn't what matters, what matters is what happens after the doubling. Year 10, your money doubles once. $2. Year 20, it doubles again. $4. Year 30, $8. Year 40, $16. A single dollar left alone for 40 years at 7% becomes $16. Now run that math on your life. $240 a month. $8 a day. Over 43 years until you turn 60, you will put in roughly $124,000 of your own money. Slowly, quietly, yanked from your paycheck before you ever see it. Before it becomes a nicer apartment. Before it becomes a newer car. Before it becomes a Tuesday lunch you won't remember by Wednesday. $124,000. That's what you give. Here's what you get back. $1.4 million. You read that again? 1.4 million. The gap between what you put in and what came out is nearly $1.3 million. That money did not come from your labor. It did not come from a promotion or a bonus or a side hustle. It came from the math. The quiet, patient, invisible math that your father never learned, and Marcus is too busy trading to notice. For the first 5 years, nothing happens. You put in $14,000. The account shows maybe 17. $3,000 of growth, $600 a year, $50 a month, less than $2 a day. This is the part nobody warns you about. This is the part where Marcus looks at his phone, sees a 30% gain on some stock he bought 3 weeks ago, and you can feel him wondering why you bother. This is the part where the math feels like a lie, where the curve on the graph is so flat it might as well be a straight line, where checking your account becomes an exercise in confirming that nothing has changed. The flat part is the test, not the crash. The crash is dramatic. The crash has a villain and a narrative and a story you can tell later. The flat part has none of that. The flat part is just Tuesday after Tuesday after Tuesday of nothing happening, of the same transfer hitting on the first of the month, of the same boring fund doing the same boring thing, of your coworker's phone lighting up green while your account sits there like a rock someone forgot in a field. The flat part is where the math is doing the most important work of your entire financial life, and you can't feel it. You can't see it. You can't screenshot it. There is no notification. There's no confetti. There is no moment where the app says, "Congratulations, you just crossed the threshold where this starts to matter." But somewhere in year 7, year 8, year 9, the line starts to bend. Not dramatically, not all at once. But the curve begins to curve, and once it starts, it doesn't stop. It can't stop, because the math doesn't stop. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't get bored. It doesn't check the news. It doesn't panic when the headlines turn red. It just keeps compounding, quietly, invisibly, relentlessly. In year 10, the money you put in, roughly $29,000, has become $52,000. 29 and 52 out. The gap is $23,000. That money did not come from you. That money came from time, from patience, from the most boring, unimpressive, miraculous force in the history of finance. But the line doesn't go straight up. It never does. You are 31 years old. 9 years in, the account sits at $63,000. It's not life-changing, but more than your father had at your age. The market drops 8% in a single day. Day 7, down 19%. Every headline is worse than the last. Someone in the break room says the word crash. Someone else says recession. A third person leans in and says he pulled everything out yesterday. Cash. Safe. Waiting for things to calm down. You go back to your desk. You don't pull anything out. But you think about it. Day 18, down 32%. The $63,000 you spent 9 years building is now worth $43,000. $20,000 gone. 4 years of contributions. Erased in 18 days. Your phone buzzes. Marcus, did you get out? Tell me you got out. You say you didn't? He goes quiet. Then for words, it's going to zero. That night, you open your laptop. The screen is the only light in the kitchen. $43,000. The sell button is right there. One click. You move the cursor toward it. Move it away. Toward it. Away. The clock reads 2:47 a.m. You close the laptop. You don't sleep. But you don't sell.